Okay, here we are, Wednesday night for the long-awaited coffee shear. We'll find out if it was worth waiting for. I don't know.
Hope you stay awake.
There's just always so much. Yeah, I hope I stay awake. Maybe I need a coffee. There's so much to talk about. There's so many things. The coffee, first of all, just the sugya of coffee in halacha is massive. There's many, many different things to talk about. We're only going to speak about a little bit tonight. There's
Drop in cost.
an espresso. We're gonna have an espresso tonight. Just it's gonna be very small, but it's gonna pack a punch, God willing. And we're gonna see hopefully some interesting sources. But you have, first of all, what is the bracha on a cup of coffee? That's discussed in halacha. What's the bracha?
I think it's more the after, if you make or not.
And that's another bracha. What's the after
If you do,
bracha? If you do, if you don't, right? That's another. I was gonna include that because the Alter Rebbe has a chiddush in that, but I actually did not include it. So, because I try to not break my rule of being on one piece of paper. Sometimes I break it, but there's is coffee kidneys. There's can you drink coffee before davening? We did touch on that in one of the previous classes about eating before davening, which we are going to touch upon that a little tonight as well, mostly just for some interesting sources. But what we're going to start with for the shir tonight is kind of a bigger question that really nothing to do with coffee per se, but it has to do with kashrus in general. And that is the halachis of bishul akum, the cooking of a Gentile. Now, the Mishnah in Masechta Avodah Zarah says that there are certain things that are osur, even though, meaning osur to eat or drink, even though not necessarily because of the kashrus of the ingredients. Meaning the ingredients can be 100% kosher and you still can't eat or drink it. And the Mishnah goes through various different types of things that this applies. Famously, I suppose, would be wine. Wine, the ingredients is grapes. What's wrong with that? Nothing wrong with grapes. No kashrus issue. I mean, unless you're from Eretz Yisrael, then you do have kashrus issues with grapes, whether it's shmita and so on and so forth. So that would be an obvious one, but there are various other things as well that the Mishnah in Avodah Zarah mentions. Each one, the Gemara then goes to break down and say, why did the Chachamim forbid us from drinking wine that we didn't make ourselves? We're not going into the detail of kosher wine today. Why did the Chachamim forbid me to drink beer? Beer is even mentioned over there. What about beer? What's beer all about? And mentions that in Shulchan Aruch. We have source number 2, we have Simon Kuf Yud Gimel in Yoreh Deah, and Simon Kuf Yud Daled, the next Simon 114, it talks about beer. Not allowed to drink beer with Gentiles. Why not? It's all discussion. What about bread? Bread from Gentiles. Can you buy bread from? If you know the bread is kosher ingredients. By the way, years ago, I remember a student of ours said they were going to Italy for a vacation, a trip, whatever. So I told him, I says, I know you might want to eat some of the bread when you're there, because what's in bread, right? It's flour, water, what's in there already. So I told him that in Italy they put lard in the bread, so you absolutely may not eat any of the bread at all in Italy. It's a mamish problem, of course, unless it has a hechsher, obviously. And
I think French bread is allowed.
I don't
They're
know.
very strict about it.
Very strict about the ingredients.
Yeah.
Okay, so if a person is not machmir on pas Yisrael, then I guess perhaps they could eat the bread there. Depends, I guess, on you would know you're from Europe, you'd know the situation better. But so Gemara Avodah Zarah, source number 1, says, Amar Rav Shmuel bar Rav Yitzchak Amar Rav, Kol anechel kameshu chai. So there's something called bishul akum, the cooking of a Gentile. Now, that does not apply to all food items. It's not like an across-the-board thing. However, when it does apply, there's basically no way out. There's basically no way out, meaning, you just mentioned, for example, bread. There's something called pas Yisrael, bread that without going into all the details, cooked by a Jew, whether the oven was turned on by a Jew, whether a Jew just added something to the flame, etc., all the details there. But there are many that are makel and don't eat pas Yisrael, and that's okay. There's many heterim. If you open up Shulchan Aruch, there's many heterim, not the specifically pas Yisrael. By the way, applies also to cookies, to pretzels, and so forth. Then there's a cholav Yisrael. Chalav Yisrael. Also, we know not everybody keeps Chalav Yisrael. Many good Jews that are not machmer in that, they have what to rely upon, even though Chassidim, of course, Chabad in particular, but Chassidim in general are very machmer on that. But if you open Shulchan Aruch, I remember when I first learned the laws of Chalav Yisrael, I was like, oh wow, I didn't know it was so lenient. I thought it was like cut and dry. I didn't know it was so lenient. Wow, there's lots of details and it's not so clear cut. Okay. However, when it comes to Bishul Yisrael, that's not a chumrah, that's not a stringency, that's not like a bonus, that's not something that Hasidic Jews do who like to wear 2 pairs of tefillin and do other things that are not required according to halacha. Bishul Yisrael is a requirement. So if said food item, which we're going to get into this in a minute, is the type of food item that requires Bishul Yisrael, requires it was cooked by a Jew. Again, without going into all the details of what exactly does a Jew have to do to have considered cooking it. But if it requires to be Bishul Yisrael, and it's not, the food is not kosher, and renders your pots non-kosher, and they would need to be kosher. So this is not a chumrah. This is a basic of halacha. Now, to which foods does Bishul Yisrael apply? That's a good question. That's a fair question. And we could debate that, and even modern poskim debate various food items. Does Bishul Yisrael apply to item A? And you're going to have some kashrus agencies are say that's not a problem. Other kashrus agencies are going to, we do need to apply Bishul Yisrael to that. That's where the Hamish brands like potato chips come in, for example. Do potato chips need to be Bishul Yisrael? Answer, depends who you ask. So that's where like the Hamish potato chips, like Liebers or whatever it is, they're machmir. It has to be Bishul Yisrael, so they're doing more stringently, whatever. Okay, so there are 2 main conditions for a food that a food item would need to meet in order for us to require it to be Bishul Yisrael. With me? The Gemara in Avodah Zarah. Omer of Shmuel Bar of Yitzchak Omer Rav. Number 1, Kol anechal kamoshu chai. Anything that is eaten, that can be eaten as it is raw and uncooked. Ein boy mishum bishulei of the kichavim. It doesn't need to be Bishul Yisrael. So according to this reasoning, if you took an apple can be eaten raw. And now you cook it and you make a baked apple with cinnamon and whatever, you make a baked apple. And a Gentile baked the apple. Kosher, we're assuming no non-kosher ingredients mixed in. Is that a problem for you to eat? According to this approach, no. Because you could have eaten it raw anyway. So the bishul, the cooking of it, in a sense, didn't really do anything. You could have had it anyway. So Bishul Yisrael doesn't apply if it can be eaten as it is in its raw state.
Why would that make a difference? If you
What
can
do
eat
you
a raw
mean?
state or not, you're cooking it, non-Jews cooking it, so
Right. So
why
in
is
other
it okay in one way but not
okay,
the
well, so in other words, basically like this, that Bishul Yisrael is a din drabanan. It's a rabbinic law, right? So the rabbanim, when they enact a law, whenever they do this, whether it's in kashrus, whether it's in nida, whether it's in any area of halacha, if they're coming generally to be machmir, to be strict on something. So they work into it. They say, well, you need to be strict, but only in these situations. So they evaluated based on whatever criteria they had. And we're going to see there's other opinions about this as well. And they said that even though we require Bishul Yisrael, we only require Bishul Yisrael in situations A, B, and C, but not in situations D, E, and F. So they figured out a way to require that when does Bishul Yisrael apply? Only if it needs someone to cook it. If it doesn't need you to cook it, then who cares who cooked it? So if a Gentile cooked it, doesn't matter. Does that make sense?
Mhm.
Okay.
I could also ask, does it mean it could be eaten raw, or it's normally eaten?
That's a good question.
There's a lot of things
I'm
that.
thinking
Yeah,
of,
that's a good
And-
question.
raw potato.
I can't give on one
There's a
point,
big,
right? A raw potato, Okay.
So meat.
You could eat it,
People
but-
can eat. You can eat technically. People.
Right. So then you're going to get into the whole discussion of what's commonly done. Fish is a big one.
Yeah.
Can you eat fish raw?
Salmon.
Absolutely not. Who eats fish raw? That's disgusting. Unless you live in Japan, or until 20 years ago, when all of a sudden every kosher pizza store also sold sushi.
Right.
So now it could be because of that, things to a certain degree maybe change and develop. What is the norm? What is considered normal to eat raw? An apple? That's pretty normal to eat an
Yeah.
apple raw. Potato? not so normal. Okay, and we could go through all.
Right.
Okay, that Basura Masnahachi. In Surah, that's what they taught. That if it can be eaten raw, ein boy mishum bishule oivdei kichavim. Then the laws of Bishul Akum don't apply. But Pupadisa Masnahachi. However, in Pupadisa, they said the following: Amar of Shmuel bar Rav Yitzchak, Amar Rav, different detail. Kol she'enu nechal ala shulchan melochim. Anything that is not served at a king's table, in present company, we would say, I suppose, on the president of the United States table. They're not going to serve it at a official White House event. Lalaf is bois hapas, and it accompanies bread, meaning it goes with something that's considered chashuv, basically. It's part of an actual meal. It's not a snack. A bag of potato chips, right? Bag of potato chips. It's not.
Yeah.
It's nothing. It's like junk. It's nothing. Is it oila al shulchan malachim? So people would say no. Potatoes. Who serves potatoes at a White House dinner?
Well, Trump's maybe.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah,
Dafka.
probably did.
Okay, so that's why, by the way, potato chips. That's part of why there is a machlokes about potato chips. So anything anything that is not going to be served on the tables of kings, not going to be served at a White House dinner, it does not need to be Bishul Yisrael. It does not need to be cooked by a Jew. So let's take a look now in source number 2, the Shulchan Aruch, who brings down this halacha lamaisa. Shulchan Aruch, Yoredeya Siman Kuf Yud Gimel 113, right at the beginning. Something that is that is not eaten chai, as it is raw. You cannot, or either you cannot or you do not eat it raw. Vagam, and also, so we see we're paskening according to both opinions. We're machmer according to both shitas of the Gemara. Vagam oil shulchan malachim l'lafis bois hapaz, and furthermore, it is being served on the tables of kings at a presidential dinner to accompany the bread. It's an actual meal. Oil parperes, or it's like a side dish kind of. So bishul goy, if a Gentile cooked it, afilu b'chli Yisrael, even if the Gentile cooked it in your frying pan. Uva basis, and in your house, on your kitchen. Osir mishum bishul goyim. Note the word osir. This is not a chumrah. This is a basic halacha, which one of the practical areas that comes into play is if a person has an aide in their home or a cleaning lady. If they cook, it's a serious. I'm not going to say problem. I'm going to say it's a serious shaila. So those who have Gentile aides or cleaning ladies that are going to cook, you have to consult with the Rav and figure out what to do.
Also, based on this, you could have the same food, like talking about potatoes. The same food could have different depending on how it's. Because potatoes for a meal can be cooked as a meal, but you talk about potato chips. It's like it could be.
Yeah. So at some point we're going to need to decide item A, whether it's potato or coffee or whatever it may be. Does that require Bishul Yisrael?
Right.
We're going to either have to say yes or no. Okay, let's take a look at the Taz, source number 3. The Taz is commenting on the Shulchan Aruch here that we had in source number 2. The Taz says, "Davar she'einu nechal chulu." Hatam, the reason why did the Chachamim enact these laws? Hatam, the reason. To ikar gezerim mishum chasnus, and that's from the Gemara Avodah Zarah also. Gemara is later in Avodah Zarah says this. Why mishum chasnus? Weddings. If you're going to be fraternizing and eating meals and breaking bread and then fabrening with the Gentiles, then unfortunately we have seen what could happen. And so then what does it help? Back to what you were asking. What does it help if it's not something that goes on a king's table? What does it help if it's something that can be eaten raw? Says the Taz, and if the food item is not so chashuv, because hey, you didn't even need to cook it, or you wouldn't serve it at a presidential dinner. You don't invite your buddy over for a bag of potato chips. So that will reduce the concern of mishum chasnus, of intermarriage. Did that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
So that's why the Chachamim enacted these things, because it basically means that any food that is considered significant, we say yes requires Bishul Yisrael. Any food that is not significant, basically, Does not require Bishul Yisrael. We're not worried about that. Oh, you're gonna have a fabrengen with your Gentile buddies over potato chips and a can of Coke? No, you're not going to. So we don't worry about chasanas there. But when it comes to more of a chosh of a food, yeah, you can invite people over, you can make a whole meal, a whole suda, this and that. That leads, God forbid, to things that we are
It's interesting
not a
that,
fan of.
whether or not, like you were saying, whether or not, could be eaten raw, defines whether it's significant.
Oh, well, that's one of the reasons. That's
Like you
right.
can't eat rice raw, but I wouldn't call someone over to have a bowl of rice together. You know, like, I mean, there's so many examples both, for
Yeah.
both cases,
We could probably discuss many of them.
yeah.
Yeah, you're right, 100%.
It's weird that that's the criteria that, you know,
Well, again, it's two things. But okay.
right.
But yeah, you make a good point. Make a good point. Okay, let's move on to source number 4. Why is source number 4 here? Very simple. Source number 4, the Radvaz, is here because, as far as I know, it is the first mention in halacha of coffee. So right away, no holds barred, we're jumping into the coffee sugya. The Radvaz was born in Spain in about 1479. So he wasn't an old man when the Spanish Inquisition happened in 1492. Rather, the Jews were expelled from Spain, and his family fled Spain in 1492. They went to Tzfas in Eretz Yisrael. He moved to Cairo in 1517, and he founded a yeshiva there. And he had some very, very choshev talmidim in that yeshiva. 2 of his talmidim were Rebbe Tzalel Ashkenazi, also known as the Shita Mekubetzes, commentary on the Gemara, and Reb Yitzchak Luria, also known as the Arizal. So the Arizal, the famous Mekubal, learned Gemara with the Radvaz, learned Nigla with the Radvaz. So that is the Radvaz, Reb David ben Shlomo Zimra. And by the way, at the age of 90, he moved back from Egypt back to Eretz Yisrael, to Yerushalayim, and the taxes were very high in Yerushalayim. So he left Yerushalayim, moved back to Tzfas, and passed away there at the age of 94.
So he was back with the Arizona.
Yeah, they did, I believe, overlap. It did overlap back in Tzfas. Okay.
Where'd you get the translation from?
Oh, so I Googled it, actually, because I had recently purchased the Shiles and Chuvas of the Radvaz. I recently purchased it, and I thought I had marked where the coffee chuva was. Now I've marked it, but I hadn't, so I couldn't find it. I was looking for it, couldn't find the chuva. So I Googled it, and up came the source as well as an English translation. I actually did not read the English translation, so I have no clue if it's accurate or good or whatever. But in fact, on the cover of the Shais and Chuvas of the Radvaz that I recently bought, it says, Rabbi shall Baal Shita Mekubetzes, Rabbi shall Harizal. That's apparently his claim. The more people know who the Harizal is, for sure, than who know who the Radvaz is. But he was obviously a big guy, and his 5-6 volumes of these like this, of his Chuvas. And yeah. So the question is as follows. Does coffee need to be Bishul Yisrael? Or in plain English, can you buy coffee at Starbucks? Without getting into the other questions about Starbucks, of which there are many, and of which the last I checked, the major kashrus agencies do not agree if you are allowed, according to basic halacha, to buy coffee at Starbucks.
Even just plain coffee.
Plain coffee. Last I checked, they disagree completely. So if you already drink coffee at Starbucks and you want to know, don't look it up.
I don't pay that much for coffee.
Oh, okay, good. So the question is,
I go see some stuff.
all the kashrus
Right.
issues aside
Price.
of how they wash the kalim that they make
Right.
the coffee in, and so on and so forth. If a Gentile barista pulls your espresso, is it osir mishum bishul akum? Or bishul akum doesn't apply to a cup of coffee? That is the question. Now, really, there was a huge machlek because there was a big. This was after the Radvaz already. There was a big shurum in Europe because Rabbi Yaakov Emden, who was a big goin, and the son of a big goin, his father was the Chacham Tzvi. He went to London, and when he was in London, someone saw him drinking a coffee in a coffee house. And someone, I guess, had a little bit of a kafschus, so they wrote him a letter. It's reported that you were drinking in the coffee house. And I can't imagine you would do that, being that you are a scholar and your father, the Chacham Tzvi, was a scholar. I can't imagine you would drink a coffee in a coffee house. Please explain you didn't do it. Please explain. And he has a multi-page tshuva on this, in which he actually ultimately says, I was wrong, I should not have done it. But he finds a way to malam. It's really not a problem, but he shouldn't have done it. In any event, that was a whole big thing. But the Ravaz before that. Shilas. Sha'alta mimeni. You asked me, Adircha daiti ala priya nikra albun. I don't know what that is. Some type of fruit. Ve'ala kehu. That's coffee. Coffee. Shahu tavshil shenaisim miklipi apri. It's some type of cooked dish, he calls it. It's not really a cooked dish, but whatever. I mean, what do you do with the coffee? You boil it in water, right?
Right, yeah.
You roast it, you boil in water. So it's a type of cooked dish. Who's lighting the flame? Who's putting the water in? Who's cooking it and so forth? Shanaisa miklipi apri, that is made out of literally means the peels of the fruit, right? And Gentiles drink it. Is it forbidden? Is it permissible or forbidden? Tshuva says that it was. I did some investigation. I didn't just assume. I looked into it. And I discovered you cannot eat it raw. Oh, I meant to bring for show and tell. I meant to bring some green coffee beans to class today. I have them. I'm going to roast them for Pesach. Pesach, I roast my own coffee. But anyway, but I forgot. So I looked into it. I found out you cannot eat coffee beans raw, and it's true. Cannot do it. I mean, you could, but they're not edible. In fact, are seeds that are hard as a rock. You can't eat them. You can't eat it. What do they do in order to make it edible or drinkable, as the case will be? Right? They roast it in dedicated. Right. This is important. They roast it in dedicated pots or pans. It gets a little bit singed or burned. They eat it. Here it says eat it. They eat the ministers, the kings and choshev people eat it. They say that it has medicinal properties. It's good. It dries up your stomach or whatever, your intestines or something, and cleans you out. Likewise, that's the fruit itself or the seed itself. They would roast and eat the fruit itself, the seed itself, a coffee bean. They would eat it itself, say it's good for you. And likewise, so likewise, they drink the mashke that they make out of it. Mashke doesn't mean mashke. Mashke means liquid, a coffee, right? So
both reasons are being used here. Can't be eaten raw,
correct.
And kings and
Correct.
officials are eating it.
Correct, especially that I think now coffee is very expensive. But good coffee, by the way, now is very, very expensive. Good coffee, cheap coffee is still cheap, but why would you drink cheap coffee?
Yeah.
Good coffee is expensive, and back then, especially when coffee first came to Europe, well, he wasn't in Europe; he was in Egypt, but coffee was expensive. Okay, so the fitam zeh roy lesser. We should say that if you want to make a coffee, go right ahead. If a Gentile makes you a coffee, it's usher. Why? Because of Shulchan Aruch in the source number 2. That's why. Not allowed to drink it. But the truth is, but it's not really. That's not really served at a presidential dinner. It's a cup of coffee. Right? It's not a particularly chosh of a drink. He says
They won't serve it in the main meal, but they'll serve it.
right. So that's why he says lalafis bois hapas. Doesn't accompany the bread. It's a side drink you have. It's not part of the actual meal itself, like you said. Therefore, we do not have the problem of bishalak. Are you going to say, what about the pots and pans they used? Maybe they boiled chazer in the pot, and you are now drinking coffee they boiled chazer in. No, that doesn't happen. Who does that? No, they use dedicated utensils. Nobody's cooking their ham sandwich in their coffee pot. Although, I didn't even mean to say that, by the way, right now. But I just realized, I remember now, it must have been Hashem threw the words in, maybe, that I've heard nowadays that some are concerned you shouldn't use, I'm not issuing a psak, I heard it's a concern to use a coffee machine in a hotel. for numerous reasons. Number one, you don't know how they washed it. Number two, some people when they travel put food into the coffee because it gets hot on the bottom. They'll cook it in the coffee container. I don't know if it's true. It might not be true. It sounds
They
ridiculous.
make those
though.
pot soups, and they might put that on even.
Oh.
There's also, if you're just using one of those coffee machines with the cup with the pods, not every pot is kosher.
That's true. That's
People bring their own. I mean, we have a machine at work, and we have people who buy their own pods because they don't like our selection, and they put them in there.
There you go. Be careful. Okay, so they don't want to get the ham taste in your coffee. You shouldn't give a bad taste to your coffee. Even though we're not going to rely on the halachic principle that your random average utensil was not used within 24 hours, which means that any ta'am, any flavor that was absorbed into the keli is pogum. So we say noisein tam lifagam. So he says we're not going to rely on that. We only rely on a b'di'evet after the fact. The Gentiles are very careful because the coffee, if you're going to make it in every random pot you have in your house, it's going to taste gross. It's going to have the other flavors in it. Maybe this pot didn't get washed completely. So no, they make sure that whatever they make the coffee in is clean, is dedicated just for coffee. When Maluba and Mikol Tam has any flavors removed from it, why? Because it's to their benefit to make sure that their utensils are clean and dedicated. Because if they don't make sure, then their coffee tastes bad. So there's no reason they should use other kalim. They use dedicated kalim. Kahu, he says. So therefore, it's permissible to eat the fruit and to drink the coffee. However, you want to go out for coffee with them, not just to drink it, but like to have a little party. Eini maskim. That I am not okay with, says the Ritaz. That I'm not okay with. Why? Because good stuff doesn't happen. That's why. So don't do it. He says, the Jewish people were holy. You shouldn't go to a Gentile party. It's not the place for a nice Jewish boy or girl to be found.
Would they consider the same as business meals or like for work?
I don't know. That's a separate discussion. I don't know. And he says, he concludes that Abbas concludes, if you need the coffee for medicinal purposes, so it's really important you get it from the Gentile cafe, go have someone pick it up or pick it up yourself and take it back to your home, but don't drink it there. That's the advice. Okay. So he's not concerned with Bishul Akum. Not concerned with it. Source number 5, Tosfos. Now, this question we could ask about coffee. We could also ask this question about beer. Is beer kosher? Now, it actually happens to be kosher agencies all got together recently and said that now no beer is kosher, unless it has a hechsher on it, or unless we tell you it's kosher. Huh?
Yeah, you just heard it. So
Sure. Because really, there's nothing non-kosher about beer. Made out of water and hops, barley, malt. There's nothing wrong with it. Yeast. But nowadays they use the other ingredients. They're adding other things in, and some beers have wine in them, which is mamish 100% treif. So the kashrus agencies changed their mind, and they rather than saying that beer that has no additional flavoring is kosher, now they say you must have a hechsher or it must be on one of our approved lists.
There were some things that were used to clarify beer. There were also problematic. I think it's isinglass. I think it's called something that comes from fish.
Comes from fish.
So the question is, what fish does it come from? And then therefore, if you're putting it in the beer to do something to the beer, then obviously
to clarify and make it, that'll be a problem also. So let's take a look at the Tosfos, who discusses beer. And we could use the same logic to apply to coffee as well. Let's take a look at it. This is Tosfos in Avodah Zarah, back in the same sugya in Avodah Zarah. Let's see. End of the line, second last word on the first line. So the Tosfos in Avodah Zarah, Daf Lamed Aleph Omid Beis. Second last word on the first line. Deloy also mishum chasnos. The whole Isser, the whole prohibition the Gemara says, which we saw quoted by the Taz. not to do these various food, whether it's bread or whether it's the coffee or whatever. Well, Gemara doesn't mention coffee explicitly, but coffee wasn't it. I don't think coffee was around then. Maybe it was. I don't know. But in any event, we said it's because of a concern of intermarriage. That loy also only if you make it a regular thing. You're always going to the store regularly, taking a beer there or whatever maybe. Or you regularly go over to their house to drink. That's a problem.
Like a bar.
Yeah. Like a bar or your neighbor. You go to your neighbor every Wednesday night, whatever, instead of the shear. Don't do that. Big ikroy ba'alma, sure, but just once in a while, no problem. Which we see from that maybe that's where some of the hetanim come in when you're traveling. It's a ikroy ba'alma. It's not a regular thing. It's a temporary. It's a occasional thing. V'chlal din sheicher, and includes this as the laws of beer. Bein sheicher shel tamarim, whether it's beer made out of dates, bein shel tavua, made out of grains like barley, etc. Now, why don't we say that beer, regardless of the ingredients, which again, by definition, your actual technical beer, without getting into all the fancy beers they make nowadays with all their ingredients and flavors and stuff, beer itself is kosher by definition. But why don't we say, how do you make beer? You put the ingredients in brief, put the ingredients together, put them in a pot, and you boil them. So that's bishul, that's cooking, that's the definition of cooking. So why don't we say a beer must have a hechsher, because a beer has to be bishul Yisrael. It's made by a Gentile. Why don't we say bishul Yisrael?
Was it served on the king's table?
Well, that'd be a good question.
Well, like, you need those two requirements.
Right.
Right?
Let's see. Now, the main ingredient of beer, if you take away the grain, then all you have is a cup of water. So the grain is for sure served al shulchan malachim. So beer effectively is cooked grain. Cooked grain would be served on shulchan malachim, presumably. So therefore, beer, which is made from cooked grain, bastama needs to be bishul Yisrael. However, Taisvus says, ve'ein lesar shel tvua, we don't answer the fact that if beer is made from tavua, from grain, mishum bishul evdikichavim, salka, v'daisa, different types of grains. The afal gav, why not? The afal gav the lechazi lekois kashucha, even though you cannot eat the grain when it's raw, you don't take a piece of wheat and just eat it, right? Or barley and eat it. The sphere like idach lishnu derav, the omar kol shein oil shochem melachim ein mishum bishul evdikichavim. That if it doesn't go on the table of kings, we don't apply bishul Yisrael. Rabbi Yochanan says later, kivasei, passions like this. Okay, so that's one reason. So the first reason is simple. What Nir said, beer is not oilal shochem melachim. It's just not. So that's one way to get out of beer requiring bishul Yisrael. Could say the same thing about coffee. Is it oilal shochem melachim? Not really. Maybe you'll have a cup of coffee after. Maybe you'll have a beer after. There was something a while ago, no, that Obama, when he was president, had a beer with someone. I don't remember what it was. Whatever, who cares? But in any event, so that's answer number one. Beer is not an issue of bishul Yisrael, even though it's made out of grain primarily. It's not oilal shochem melachim. That's the first answer. Second answer, which by the way, if I recall correctly, is the only one of these answers quoted by the Taz in Siman Kufiyot Dalet and Shulchan Aruch, which is the one after one we saw. Second answer. Another reason to permit beer, meaning that we don't require bishul Yisrael, we just require kosher ingredients, is the ein boy mishum bishule of dekechavim. Why? The hechi the hatvua bottle lagabe amayim le'inyan birka shahakol niyabidvarai. Just like we say, what's the bracha on beer? The bracha shahakol. Why don't you say adama? It's made out of grain. And the halach is, if you make like a soup that's boiled vegetables, you technically have to say adama on the soup itself, even if you're not eating the vegetables. Mm-hmm. So why don't we say the same thing about beer? Beer is boiled adama items, grain and so forth. So maybe we should say adama on the beer. Maybe we should say adama on a cup of coffee. So the answer says Taisus, no, we don't do that. Why? Because we say that even though it has grain, and grain is adama, but the grain is secondary or insignificant to the beer. I'm sorry, to the water portion. And the bracha of water for sure shahab. So even though we have an adama ingredient, but it's bottled, it's insignificant. The ikr is the water.
I'm sorry, what does grain do to, like, what does it add to the beer? Like, what are
The flavor, the alcohol.
The flavor, but it's not like
Well,
making pieces of barley. It's not like
you need to have a starch and sugars in order for the yeast to ferment anything to alcohol. That's where you get, that comes from the grain.
Okay.
And typically you use malted barley, which is barley that's allowed to sprout a little bit because that has more sugar in it. You crack that up and you cook that
And the
and
sugar converts into
alcohol.
Okay.
Put that at least.
Okay, thank
So
you.
reason number one,
Go visit a brewery.
Or we can brew.
in Belgium, go to Belgium. I went to a brewery in Belgium many, many years ago. It was good.
Stella.
No. Number one, it's not beer or coffee. It's not oil shulchan malachim. Number one. Number two, just like regarding the bracha over it, we say that the grain, which is adama, that's bottled, that's insignificant. It's or if you don't want to say insignificant, it's secondary to the main ingredient, which is water. Just like it works that way with bracha, so too says Tosfos, hachanami bottled in isubishul. So too, when it comes to the not brachas, but comes to the concern of bishul Yisrael, the grain is also considered insignificant. Grain would need to be bishul Yisrael, yeah, probably, but water doesn't. So it's not a problem. It's the same thing with coffee. So there's no issue of bishul Yisrael by beer. There's no issue of bishul Yisrael by coffee.
So Tosfos?
Huh?
That's what that sauce was coming at the end? Do
Yeah.
you think it was coffee?
Yeah, the poskim are agreed to this.
But coffee, I mean, the beans add everything.
So same thing with beer.
No,
Yeah,
but,
same with beer.
no, but also really, the grains
without
don't
the-
stay in
without
the beer.
grain.
You're
When
right.
you make
Well,
beer,
that's true too.
you cook the grains, then you take them out. So
That's
you're
right.
left on with
You
the
filter
yeah?
them,
Yeah.
you filter them through water.
you take the
Not
essence.
with coffee though.
Same thing.
Same
You
thing.
filter you.
Yeah, it's
How's coffee brown?
freeze dried coffee
Because when you
the
pour the water through the coffee,
So pieces of the coffee go, the bean go in, no?
No,
A few pieces. It depends how you make your coffee. Different ways to make
Not
coffee.
coffee,
It's also-
not
yes,
making instant coffee with
Instant
Even
coffee
instant
is
instant coffee. I don't know. Instant
Instant-
is like a.
instant coffee is coffee that's been made and then dried,
Right.
dehydrated.
It's not.
So
the
there's
beans, that's
material
right.
there, but it's very, very fine. So a lot of you make coffee through filters. You like if you have a Chemex.
Yeah.
Oh,
You just
Chemex,
put-
now we're talking.
So you put
My
you're
favorite.
pouring the hot water on the coffee beans, the cracked coffee beans that are going to filter. So it's going through. I mean, the water that comes from barley also gets a color, but it's a very pale color because barley is a very pale color. It's more like the color of this, very pale colored item. Coffee, on the other hand, and roasted coffee, especially because it's burnt,
Right.
so it's going to be really dark. So what's going to come through, the soup that's going to come out of that is going to be this, because really the particles are
Right.
fine. They're very, very fine.
Right.
But the reality is that 90% of it, if you put a cup of beans and you're pouring water on it, the beans still stay in that filter. The majority of the coffee, whatever is the coffee, is
Yeah.
chucked.
Same thing with tea.
Same thing with tea. Right. Right. Same thing with tea. So and the poskim agreed to this. I looked for the source. It's brought down. I couldn't find it, and then I ran out of time. But apparently, the result was machmir. But I don't think, to the best of my knowledge, any of the poskim are machmir that coffee has to be bishul. So to my, I mean, it could be someone is. I don't know, but
If you like.
so you have other concerns about taking a coffee in a cafe. You have other questions, but bishul Yisrael, not a problem. Okay, now let's move on to source number 6, the Pri Chadash. We're already running out of time. There's so much to talk about. The Pri Chadash was Chizkiah de Silva. Chadash Chizkiah de Silva. That's his name. Chizkiah de Silva. He was born in Livorno, Italy, 1659. And he passed away 1698. At the age of 20, he left Italy and moved to Eretz Yisrael, to Yerushalayim. At some point, 1691, not sure exactly what led to this, but he went to Amsterdam. In Amsterdam, they tried to convince him to stay there and be the Rav. But instead, he began writing his Sefer Pri Chadash, which is a commentary on the Shulchan Aruch. And I think he was known in part for not being shy to argue with the Machaber. He was not shy. He was not. He was tough. So he says the following. This is in Hilchos Tefillah. Now we may have actually discussed this Pri Chadash in the class we had on eating before davening. I don't recall, and I didn't check if we discussed it. But Umash. Yeah. So this is going on the laws of Tefillah. The Machaber, the Shulchan Aruch says you're allowed to drink water before davening. Says the Pri Chadash, Dafka beloy suker. Only if you don't put sugar in your water. I guess people put sugar in the water. Aval besuker. You want to put sugar in your water? That's the most arrogant thing imaginable. And that's the whole problem. That's the whole problem eating before davening. Eating before davening is considered, why are you feeding yourself before you pray to Hashem? That's considered gaiva. Water has no gaiva associated with it. So says the Pri Chadash, you want to have a cup of water? Gezunter heit. But he probably said it in a different language. You want to put in sugar? Get out of here. The same thing applies to coffee, says the Pri Chadash. You're permitted to drink coffee before davening. Why?
That's not
One
gaiva.
reason,
That's not good.
Oh, so you might say coffee is water. We spoke in Hilchos Bishul Akum, coffee is water. The Tosfos, coffee is water. But that's not what Pri Chadash says. Because coffee helps you focus. You should be able to daven properly. Ubefrat, listen to this. He lived in Egypt. Ubefrat be'eretz Mitzrayim. In Egypt, you especially should drink coffee before davening. She'ena das misiyashe beloy kaveh. I don't know what that means. You can't think straight if you don't drink a cup of coffee. I don't know what that means.
It's like Turkish coffee.
But I saw a guy today. He says to me, "Oh, shalom aleichem. I just came from Egypt." He left Eretz Yisrael in yeshiva, and the people came through Egypt. So I did not tell him about this Pri Chadash. Pri Chadash says for sure you should drink coffee before davening in Egypt because you can't think straight if you don't drink a cup of coffee. Some people feel that way everywhere. Aval betzuker, listen to this, the Pri Chadash. You want to put sugar into your coffee? Get out of town. Osir. No way.
Because you have to drink it black.
Listen to this. For who hadin, by the way, says the Pri Chadash, listen to this. He's machmir on the sugar. You cannot drink sugar, however. For who hadin lechol ma'at min targima. What have a shtickle mazonis or something? What, something to eat? Kadesh loy lishas akave aliba rekanya. You don't want to drink a coffee on an empty stomach. That's not good for you. The asir that it means like it constricts you or something. I'm not sure what it means exactly. You could also have something, a little bite to eat with the coffee. Also, sugar, no. That's gaiva. A bite to eat with it? Yeah, you can't take coffee on an empty stomach.
He was against sugar.
It was against sugar.
His doctor told him no sugar.
Now let's take a look at Shulchan Aruch. Now, okay, here comes Pesach, guys. I know we are. Oh, it's Rosh Chodesh right now, no?
Yes.
Yeah.
Rosh Chodesh Nisan. Chodesh is Elochem. Pesach's in 2 weeks. Baruch Hashem, Givaldik. So we have to talk about Pesach for a minute. What's the Pesach connection? Says the Shulchan Aruch in Simin Tov Pei Aleph, which is the law. Huh? Oh, Afikoman, Givaldik. Simin Tov Pei Aleph, Afikoman. Look in the Shulchan Aruch source number 7. Shaloi lish. The halacha says the section of this Shulchan of this Simin in Shulchan Aruch. Shaloi lishtois achar arba koisis is not allowed to drink after the 4 cups. Says the Mechaber Aleph. Halacha Aleph in the Mechaber. Achar arba koisis einoi rashai lishtois yain elamayin. You may not drink wine after the 4th cup. Water. Water alone you're permitted to drink. Interesting Ramah here, by the way. We may speak about this more in the future. I'm not sure. Every drink, orange juice, apple, I don't care what you. Every drink, same as wine. Not allowed to drink it after the 4 cups. No way. But water, you could. Right. Umi shahu istinis, but someone who is very finicky. Oy to'iv harbe lishtos, or is really thirsty, really wicked thirsty. Then yochel lishtos kes chamishi. Not anything else. You can drink a 5th cup of wine. V'yomer alav halal agadol, and you have to recite halal on it. Give it valid.
It's a big price to pay.
A big price to pay. We may speak about this more future. I was debating. I'm not sure. Is it Rambam on this piece? Rambam a different. Okay. So that's the Shulchan Aruch. Now let's come back at source number 8 to our newly beloved Pri Chodash, the Bechizkiah de Silva, because he has something to say over here too. In the Shulchan Aruch, commenting on the Mechaber, source number 8. It's the Pri Chodash again. V'chol hamashkin dinan kiyayin kain kosav bebeis Yosef. That's what the Beis Yosef says. V'li nira, it seems to me, says the Pri Chodash, lahatir mashkin she'enon meshakin. He's arguing with the Beis Yosef, arguing with Mechaber. I want to tell you that the prohibition of drinking liquids, whether wine or like the Ramah says, really anything with exclusion of water, I don't agree with that. If it's not meshakir, if it's not a alcoholic beverage, if it won't intoxicate you, linir lahatir, I'm okay with that, he says. You want to drink after the 4th cup, a cup of apple juice? Go right ahead. What's wrong with apple juice? Wine, okay, whiskey, potato vodka, kosher for Pesach, potato, no, that you can't drink. Shaharei kosav the Ran says, the mishum matzah, the reason why we don't permit you not to drink after the wine is not really because of the taste of the matzah. What's the proof? Shaharei, you drank already 2 cups of wine after the matzah. So it cannot be that you want to prolong and preserve the taste of the matzah. V'haraya, you drank already 2 cups of wine, you lost a cup of matzah already. So we're not concerned with preserving the taste of the matzah. And the Gemara says, okay, Ella rather, what's the real reason why we don't want you to drink after the 4 cups? Says the Pri Chodash, it shouldn't appear as if you're adding to the 4 cups. As if you're starting to say it all over again. Ulafi tam zeh, says the Pri Chodash, based on this reason, kol mashka delay avichamer medina, any wine, any liquid, any drink that would not be considered chamer medina, a wine of the country, meaning it doesn't have to be actually wine, any other chosh of a beverage, motor lishtoisa achad al koisa, you're permitted to drink after the 4 cups. Why? Because then it will not appear as if you're adding to the 4 cups. You're not allowed to add to the 4 cups. We have 4 cups, we don't have 5. Well, that discussion in and of itself, but because the Ramah says you could drink a 5th cup. Clear in Shulchan Aruch, you could drink a 5th cup if you need to. But that's a whole other discussion. So as long as it doesn't appear like you're adding to the 4 cups, then we're good to go. Another reason, by the way, you hear where he's going now? Another reason is that there's a separate halacha, nothing to do with Afikoman, nothing to do with anything. But you're supposed to stay up the entire night doing what? Telling the story of the Exodus. What do you do when the Seder's over? You go to sleep? You don't go to sleep when the Seder's over. You fabreng. You tell the story of that, right? You tell the story of the Exodus. You maybe don't go to sleep. You maybe just fall asleep.
Ah.
So you have to go, how late do you have to tell the story of the Exodus? Until you fall asleep on the table. You don't go to sleep on Pesach, you fall asleep. V'im yishte, and if you're going to drink wine, a 5th cup, a 6th cup, a 7th cup, you're going to become intoxicated. What's going to happen then? Fall asleep. Are you going to tell the story of the Exodus all night? No, you fell asleep because you drank too much wine. Chacham. Me'ata, says the Pri Chodash, therefore, based on that reason, listen to this. Kol any beverage that is not intoxicating, you could drink. That's what it says. It's a davar borer. It's clear, obvious. Not only is it not mishaker, not only does it not intoxicate you, it keeps you up. Caffeine. So for sure you could drink coffee after the 4 cups of wine, says the Pri Chodash.
So he disagrees with the Bet Yosef and the Ramah. The whole thing on.
Yeah.
He's throwing them both out.
This guy's a heavy hitter. He wasn't scared. Now, we only have a few minutes, but I cannot hold back to share with you the Rebbe's reading of the Diyukim in the Alter Rebbe's Haggadah. I can't hold back. Source number 10. The Chidah just says, by the way, source number 9, that coffee is not kidneys. And the Chidah on source 9 says, I saw the tree, it ain't kidneys. Stop telling me it's kidneys. That's what it says in source number 9. Source number 10. The Alter Rebbe's Haggadah. Now, this is the Haggadah, means it was printed in the Siddur of the Alter Rebbe. And again, as we've mentioned before, the Siddur of the Alter Rebbe, which includes halachas, which are halacha lamaisa, typically doesn't get into shittas, and it's just boom, this is what you do. those are written by the Alter Rebbe himself. It's not like Art Scroll Siddur today, which is nothing wrong with Art Scroll Siddur, but I don't think that we can be medayik in the language of the Art Scroll Siddur that they choose to use. But the Alter Rebbe, we can very much be medayik in every single word he uses and the words he doesn't use. So let's take a look at the Alter Rebbe's Haggadah. Sofun. And again, by Haggadah, I mean this. It was printed in the original Alter Rebbe, or not the original, but in the Alter Rebbe's, actually, I think it was, in Alter Rebbe's Siddur. Sofun. Ve'acharkach. After what? What's ve'acharkach? After what? After Shulchan Aruch, after you finish eating your meal. What comes after Shulchan Aruch? Sofun. Eat Afikoman. V'chag yikach Afikoman. Take your Afikoman. V'chalkach b'nei beis and divide it for everybody. Everybody should have a piece. Even though you don't necessarily have enough for everybody to have kazayis of it, right? But whatever, you give other matzah. L'cholach and kazay. Give everyone a kazayis. Now, here's the kicker. V'yizoher. And be cautious. Shalo yishta achar Afikoman. Be cautious, be careful not to drink after the Afikoman. Doesn't say it's also. It says be careful not to. But eat it while reclining. But you have to eat before chatzos. Now, on source number 11 is the Rebbe's Haggadah, where the Rebbe explains the Yukim and the Alter Rebbe's Haggadah, as well as various other sources, and it's mostly a halacha Haggadah, primarily with focused on halacha for the most part. The right column. The Rebbe says this instructions of the Alter Rebbe need to be examined more carefully. Number one, Heve Leila Hazir. Why does he say not to drink after the Afikoman? Should have told me not to eat after the Afikoman. That's much worse. Drinking, okay, how to drink. The Pri Chadash says it's okay as long as the Mashaker. We have it, but to eat something after. But it doesn't say that. It doesn't say don't eat. By the way, I looked in another Haggadah this morning. In the Haggadah of Rav Reuven Margolius, and he says there, don't eat, be careful not to eat and not to drink, he says. Dalton leaves that eating. But the eating is much worse. So why doesn't he tell you, don't eat it? That's number one. Number two, what does it mean, be careful not to drink? Like, oh, careful, Tato, don't hurt yourself. What do you mean, be careful? It's also to drink after the four cups, after the Afikoman. Or he could have said, or don't drink. Either say it's also to drink after the Afikoman, or don't drink after the Afikoman, which is what all the poskim say. So what does it mean? What does it mean? Be careful not to drink. What is that? How are you careful? Like
It's
either
allowed to.
drink or don't drink. Be careful not to drink. What are you talking about? Gimel 3. This cautioning that the Alter Rebbe is giving us, be careful not to drink. He should have written it after you eat Afikoman. Don't write it before you eat Afikoman. Before I eat Afikoman, you're telling me don't drink after the Afikoman. No, let me eat the Afikoman. Then say now you can't drink. So why does he write it before? Left column. We could say as follows. The meaning of the words in the Alter Rebbe, which were chosen carefully and with precision, v'yizoher, be cautious, be careful not to drink. What does that mean? And again, he doesn't say it's forbidden to drink or don't drink. So what it means is, again, how do you be careful, like careful not to drink? Either drink or don't drink. So says the Rebbe, Hainu, the meaning of the word to be cautious or careful not to drink is, al yedei sheyishtadel shelo yitzomeh. Make sure you're not thirsty. When do you do that? Before you eat Afikoman or after you eat Afikoman? Before. That's why he tells me before. Be careful not to drink after the Afikoman. So if you need to drink water, drink it now, before you eat Afikoman. That's what he tells us before. The way to make sure you won't drink later is by drinking water now, and then you're not thirsty eating. Now we can understand all the questions we asked. Aleph. The Alter Rebbe does not need, unlike I saw in the Haggadah of Rav Reuven Margolius and Mistamba, other Haggadahs as well, he does not tell you not to eat after, which is much more severe to eat after the Afikoman. Doesn't tell you not to eat. Why? Because there's another halacha. The halacha is the Afikoman has to be eaten while you're full, while you're already safe. So you're anyway full. So I don't need to tell you not to eat. You're not hungry. I know you're not hungry because the halacha is that Afikoman can only be eaten when you're basically full already. Does that make sense? So he doesn't need to warn you not to eat. But you're not going to eat, you're full. Base. He's not actually trying to tell me the halacha of whether you are or are not allowed to eat after Afikoman. Why not? Because the place to discuss the halacha is in the Shulchan Aruch. Like the Siddur. The Siddur just tells you what to do. The halacha, forget about the halacha. Just tell me what to do. That's the Siddur. The Siddur is the instruction book for everybody. Shulchan Aruch is for the scholar. A scholar opens up the Shulchan Aruch and learns what's the opinion, what's the yesh oimrim, what's the machaber, what's the ramah. Who's the Siddur for? It's for everybody. Just tell me what to do. So he's not telling me the halacha. Is it usher to drink after Afikoman? Is it mutar to drink after Afikoman? He's not getting into that. He only tells me how to actually do the seder properly. Namely, that you should drink, but drink enough water that you won't be thirsty in 5 minutes from now after you ate Afikoman. Gimel, Muvan, it's understood. The time to warn me, to caution me rather about this. The last time that I should be cautioned to make sure that you're not going to be thirsty is right before I eat Afikoman. Not afterwards. Right before it. Afterwards, it's too late already. That's why the Alter Rebbe writes it right before he tells you that you're going to eat it. Or in a slightly different style to say the same similar thing. If you don't make a point of not allowing yourself to be thirsty, meaning if you don't make a point of drinking, but you soiv harbe lishtois, and now it's already after the Afikoman. You're like, oh man, I'm so thirsty. I forgot to drink an extra cup of water before the Afikoman. What do I do now? Soiv harbe lishtois. Okay, so in such a case, how do you tiru loy laver? That's poskim. So we're going to allow you. We're going to say, okay, there are some poskim say your mom is not allowed to, but okay, well, you're really thirsty. We'll permit that. For lishtois sharmash, you can drink other liquids, not wine. You can drink other liquids. For lochin mazhin malzeh. And that's why we are cautioned about that. Because eating is mamish not allowed. Even if you say you eat Afikoman and you say, I'm still hungry. Sorry, buddy. Too bad. You cannot eat after Afikoman. Too bad. Drinking? Okay. We could permit drinking certain liquids according to the Pri Chodesh. For sure, coffee we could permit. Maybe even that. If you have to drink, you could be machmir to drink either water, I guess, like the Machaber says, or coffee, like the Pri Chodesh says. Yeah.
You can't eat until after the Seder ends, after the Afikoman, or until you wake up the next day.
Until you wake up the next day. Or if you don't go to sleep. I guess you can wake up when the sun rises.
Let's say you finish your Seder at 1 and you're still awake by 3.
Can't eat.
You still can't eat?
No.
Even if you finish the Seder and you
The
been
better question is
No.
if you go to sleep, you say 12:30, and you wake up at 3 a.m, is that
you're
considered?
thirsty.
I don't. That's a good question. Off the top of my head, I don't know the
That's what
answer.
I plan to do.
Not that you plan on doing that. We will have Shachris here on Pesach Yontiv at 10 a.m.
No eating till
You could drink coffee before davening, according to the Pri Chodesh.
No sugar.
No sugar, according to the Pri Chodesh.
Even a piece of cake.
Even a piece of cake. So that is a little bit about coffee. I hope you enjoyed the little tour of some different sources and a very geshmak diuk in the Alter Rebbe's Haggadah over there. And
My father always had coffee and a little piece of cake before davening, but
Oh.
I thought it was not allowed. I didn't say anything to it. But
well, by Chassidim, we for sure do it. The Litvish, they don't like it so much. But you can always tell them, hey, the Pri Chodesh, he knew how to learn.
But the Chabad regulars, everybody, they bring coffee and.
Yeah. Okay, Yishan, thank you everyone for coming.